Balance of Power, April 2023. All right, let's take a look.
The intensity of the enemy VFX indicator in PvP, I think a couple of people have commented that it's very strong. We are toning it down a little bit in this balance patch, which I think will help sort of playability, especially in OPR and War.
Have other people experienced that? Like me personally, I didn't have any issues with it. I don't know if maybe it was creating some sort of lag or something. I have no clue, but I personally didn't have any problems with it.
Welcome to Forge and Aeternum, where we talk about all things New World. Today we're going to be doing a Balance of Power episode where we dive deep on combat, the meta of New World, and the state of balance. We're going to try a different format today where Michael asks the questions. So,
is this specific to PvP? Because I feel like when you talk about combat and balance, it's really about PvP. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let's find out.
Michael, take it away.
So overall, are you happy with the changes you made in Season 1?
Overall, we're pretty happy with the changes. Obviously, when you make this many changes, it's hard to be 100% happy with everything.
We're talking about how, like, fire staffs are incredibly powerful. Is that what we're talking about?
But in general, we're happy.
And how muskets are complete trash now?
We think we have a good foundation with the fortifying and armor mitigation changes, with separating out CC and balance, and the grit change. I think we've got a good balance upon which we can build.
I think we need more CC, personally.
Now. We're also seeing a pretty nice shift in meta. We're seeing a lot more diversity in builds, especially in arenas. I played a bunch of arenas over the week, and we're seeing a lot of diversity in builds, and all those builds performing pretty well. We're also seeing a lot more diversity now in expeditions, which we really like. Even in
I'd agree with that. I don't see any Void Gauntlets, though. I think Void Gauntlet is dead. What else? I see Axe. I don't see any Great Hammers. I see Axe. I don't see Hammer very often. In 3v3 specifically. What else? I've seen way less spears, though I don't know why. I feel like spears should still be popular, but I have seen less of them. All right, let's continue. Let's hear what he has to say.
In War, there's still a heavy bruiser element, but we are seeing a couple new builds sneak in as people are trying new strategies. So that's all good. On the sort of negative side, we are seeing a very heavy ranged meta in OPR. We think this is partially because of the scoring and the range, and the sort of the layout of the mode, but there's also some relative power there in those weapons that we're looking at.
No, it is 100% because of the layout. You have these huge, wide open spaces, which make it really easy to sit back and fire from a distance. You guys need additional maps. And then on top of that, it really just has to do with you know, the large crowds. You know, if there's a ton of people all grouped up, unless your tanks are like really tanky, there's no way for them to survive that like sort of onslaught of tons of people. And I think how a lot of games sort of deal with this is they give ranged attackers and casters like a huge attack bonus over the melee, and then they give the melee like a huge defense, whereas things are a little bit more relatively even in New World. And the problem with that is that if you have like 10 melees in one space, they're just gonna obliterate the crap out of each other. They're just gonna gank, splat all over the ground. And so there's no advantage there from being in close range, whereas normally if you have it with like an extreme amount of damage from the ranged characters and an extreme amount of defense from the defensible characters, this kind of works itself out, because in those big crowds of like clashing armies of melee people, they aren't just instantly obliterating each other. They're kind of tanking each other, because tanks aren't well equipped to take out tanks, but they are well equipped to take out those squishy ranged people that are at a distance. And so I really think that you guys need to create a larger extreme where the ranged characters are dealing more damage than they are now, and the tanky characters are more tanky than they are now, so that tanks aren't splatting each other, and there's a real advantage to being one versus the other.
And so what is the overall state of balance in New World now?
We're seeing a lot of strength in the magic weapons. Both Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet are heavily used in all of the PvP modes.
For
They're
sure.
performing well, they're being used a lot, and their win rates are high. We're also seeing a lot of usage of bow, especially in OPR. However, its win
Well,
rates
yeah.
are not very high. In fact, they're under 50%. So we're seeing a lot of usage, but only strong performance in a sug segment of the audience. We're seeing melee underperform versus.
Well, that's because it's a skill-based weapon. It's not that it's weak. It's not that you are, well, I guess you would be more likely to. It's not that the weapon is bad, that you don't see a high win rate in people using bows. It's because the skill cap is higher, which means that even if it's a good weapon and it's popularized by people who are really skilled and doing a lot of a lot of work in these games. Shout out to Aeroly. You're it's not going to translate well to people who are just picking it up because they see other people doing so well with it, and then they don't have the skill to back up what is necessary for being effective with the bow.
Ranged, especially in LPR. We think this is heavily related to the layout of the mode and the scoring systems, but there's also some relative underperformance there. On a good note, we're seeing some nice clear rates and mutations. Gen was recently mutated, and it really sank at first in terms of completion rates. But as people sort of adjusted to the meta and figured out how to play, those completion rates were nearly back to where they were pre-patch. So we're seeing people catch up with the meta.
Okay.
So then what is next for combat? Like what are the next steps?
So the next steps sort of remain about what we talked about in episode 1. High level, we want to do sort of larger balance patches every season. So big balance patches with thematic balances. And then we want to start doing monthly balance patches more frequently. And
I'm a fan.
These changes will be a little more just data-based. We don't want to introduce a lot of risk here. So currently we're working on that first balance patch. We hope to release it sort of end of April, early May.
Should be
and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. And then we're also working on the larger Season 2 changes. They're going to be composed of that sort of underpowered, underused ability pass that we're going to be doing. And here I just want to take a second and say thank you to everyone. Like a lot of great suggestions in the thread last time, so we really appreciate that. Something else we're experiencing.
I kind of wonder how they do that. How if they're going to do the changes so often and they're updating the most underused skills and whatnot, how do they get that information and then make those changes in a timely fashion? Or maybe it's just as simple as tweaking the numbers and I'm overthinking it. But if they were doing like full-on skill overhauls, I feel like it would take a little bit more time. I feel like they would almost have to have 2 things already in the tank, like 2 patches already in the tank for Season 1. At the start of Season 2, they do their second, already discussed major changes, and then by Season 3 they would be implementing the stuff from Season 1, and Season 2 would kind of act like a buffer where they are making the changes necessary from the data they received in Season 1. So like everything would be a season behind as the updates rolled out. And I don't know, I feel like that would make sense. But let's see.
Experimenting with for Season 2 are some blocking changes. We're testing with them internally, and they're looking good. And if they continue to look good, we'll probably test them in the PTR and potentially release them in Season 2.
Awesome. So let's dig into some specific areas now.
Blocking changes. I wonder if that'll look like.
What are your thoughts on Firestaff?
Overall, I think Firestaff's a little bit oppressive, especially in OPR. It's a
you are
weapon that
nuking,
is
obliterating,
on the side to use, and its performance
destroying
is really
us.
strong.
Yeah.
Because of that,
I've been considering using it for a long while because, I'm getting old, I'm getting overweight, I am overweight. And, my reaction times just aren't what they used to be. And so the flamethrower just looks really nice and simple for someone like me who, needs that lower skill cap because, they just can't do what they used to. But on top of it being incredibly powerful, now it's just like everybody's using it.
we are looking at some potential nerfs for it. We are looking at probably taking a look at flare, the cooldown on pillar. There's also a bug that's allowing extra empowerment stacks. So,
okay, so you're actually talking about the patch you already rolled out. All right, so that's interesting. Yeah, okay, so 4 minutes ago, you're talking about how in the future you're going to be doing the things you already. Oh, that's interesting. That you guys must have recorded this and intended to release it before the patch, but I don't know, maybe not. Let's let them cook.
We're thinking about making these changes, and we think with these changes, Firestaff will probably be in a good place because it's not showing super strength here, just a little bit.
No, it's showing
And
super
how about
strength.
the other strong magic weapon, the Ice Gauntlet?
So Ice Gauntlet is showing, heavy usage in all of our modes and heavy win rates.
They're nerfing Entomb.
However, we don't see like a clear issue here. I think there's probably a little bit of strength within Tomb in arenas, but
Yeah.
there's no sort of smoking gun here.
Okay, so we're really
we're gonna keep
confirming
our
that this
eye
is
on
all
Ice
about the
Gauntlet.
recently
No
released
big changes
recently
planned,
released
for
patch.
this balance patch, but we're going to be keeping our eye on it.
Okay.
And how about everyone's new favorite ranged weapon, the bow?
The bow. Well, as I said before, bow is seeing heavy usage in both arenas and OPR. I think this is partially due to the musket changes. A lot less people are using musket.
Yeah, because musket is
And I
trash
also
now.
think the
You killed
the
musket.
fortify and armor mitigation changes are allowing it to hit a little bit harder. So what we're seeing is strength from this weapon from people who really know how to utilize it and sort
Yeah.
of get all of its power. Because of that, we don't want to sort of
High
nerf
skill
the
cap.
overall power of the weapon. Instead, we want to sort of try to eliminate some of the extremes here. With that in mind, there are two changes that we're looking at for next balance patch. One of them is to sort of add some damage fall off past certain ranges, so people can't pull some of those extreme shots. The second thing we're looking at is reducing the hitbox of the heavy and abilities. So again, people can't sort of make some of those shots over the hill and some of the extreme shots.
And what about our poor melee friends?
Our melee friends are struggling a little bit, especially the medium and heavy users. I think the survivability that they have is not quite making up for the lack of mobility that light has. So we're seeing them struggle, especially versus light ranged. Because of that, there's a couple, or actually a few changes we're looking at. One is we're going to increase the armor, the base armor of medium and heavy armor. I think this will not only give them a little inherent additional armor benefits, it'll also make things like Fortify stronger on them. Second, we're going to
I think I noticed the difference today in OPR.
to around 5%. I think with the above changes, this will make Shirking Fort a very viable option for heavy and maybe melee.
I don't know about you guys, but maybe I don't know. I could be narking on my own failures, but just throwing this out here. How many of you using heavy armor use shirking fortification? Like, how often are you dodging instead of blocking? Is shirking fortification something that like would even be useful to people in heavy? Like, I understand they're buffing it, so maybe you would want to try, but I don't ever find myself dodging instead of blocking in heavy armor, like ever.
Also versus some of the aversion perks. Third, we're going to be looking at the Fortify, some of the perks and abilities give for some of the strength-based weapons like Warhammer, Great Axe, and Sword and Shield. We think these changes combined with some of the Fire Staff and bow changes we've talked about will sort of even out the playing field.
Are there any further adjustments for the musket?
So musket is definitely seeing decreased usage after changes, and its performance is not very good. So we are definitely looking at the musket. I think we want to take these changes slow. We are working on a larger rework for the musket. We don't have a TBD yet on what time.
There's no reason to use it now. It's garbage.
So,
it is
we're
terrible.
Moving slow on the changes. So with that said,
Ugh.
there are two changes we're looking at. I think
It's one of my
we're
favorite
going
weapons
to
too,
decrease
and I
the
wasn't
amount of
even
time
good with
we're
it. I
spending hands
sucked
so
with
players
it.
can get to that better accuracy quicker. And we've also made some adjustments to the reticle animation, so it better matches accuracy. The weapon was actually quite a bit more accurate than the reticle was showing, so I think that'll help. So those changes will help, but I could see us making more changes in the next minor balance.
I would hope so. It's not looking
any
good.
other changes coming in the next balance patch that are worth mentioning?
Yeah, there's two interesting ones that I think people will enjoy. One is the intensity of the enemy VFX indicator in PvP. I think a couple of people have commented that it's very strong. We are toning it down.
I haven't experienced that, but I'll take your word for
sort
it.
of playability, especially in OPR and War. A second change that I'm pretty excited about is for Void Blade and the Void Gauntlet. We did finally find the bug, which I think was affecting the homing of that. So that'll be fixed in this balanced pass. And we hope that sort of opens up that as another sort of viable build.
Yeah, so I experienced this and didn't even realize it. So I was messing around with the Void Gauntlet, leveling it up, and I couldn't hit anything, and I was confused. Like if you know those like crawling skeletons on the ground that kind of move forward, I would not be able to hit them for whatever reason. And I don't know, the Void Gauntlet was just it played weird. So and I just thought, you know, I suck, so that must be why. But no, apparently there actually was an issue.
Build to further increase build diversity.
So that is all the questions we have for today. Community question?
Oh, community question. Yes. So first of all, thanks again for your great responses to the last question. So we wanted to do something similar. In season 3, we're also planning on doing a perk balance adjustment. We did one of these past, and I think it was pretty successful. We're doing it in season 3 when other gear changes happen, so it's not as sort of impactful on builds since there's a shakeup happening anyway. So the question is, what perks do you think are underpowered, or do you have a great idea to improve? Please let us know. Also, like and subscribe. Let us know you're enjoying the program, and we'll continue doing it. Thanks for joining us. See you in Aeternum.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so these aren't so much what is underpowered versus overpowered. Actually, I'll mention one. For the anything shirking, I feel like is not effective for heavy armor. I could be wrong, but just because the dodge window is so short, I don't dodge on heavy armor. I'd rather block. It's more effective. It's more resource optimal. I don't know why I would be attempting to dodge things using shirking anything in heavy armor, but I could be wrong. But secondarily, I'd really like to see something like interval shards or perks to increase like the rate at which you can swing light attacks with a weapon, or, you know, fire attacks with one of your magic weapons. I'd also like to see some sort of shard or perk that increase movement speed. Those would both be fantastic. And that's probably it. Those are my opinions for the day. So thank you everybody for watching, and see you next time.
I mean, what has been your impression of it as you've started
what's
writing
this?
stories in this world?
I like that the corruption basically takes over your mind. It's probably a lot like media in that respect.
Like media. That's awesome. Soul-sucking media.
Yeah.
Right.